My life, from the outside looking in, probably seemed pretty put together. I'm Riley, in my mid-30s, living in a nice apartment in the city, working as an architect. I design structures, solid, reliable, meant to stand the test of time. Irony, right? Because my own foundation was built on quicksand, crumbling slowly beneath the weight of my family. For years, I was their unseen support beam, the one who held everything up while they redecorated the floors above. It started subtly, like most insidious things do. A small loan for Mom's medical bill, helping Dad with a car repair. Then came Owen, my younger brother, charming, always on the cusp of his next big break, which inevitably meant his next big debt. I paid off his credit cards after a failed venture, $3,000 that felt like a fortune at the time, but he promised it was a one-time thing. It wasn't. Then it was helping them cover their increasingly expensive health insurance premiums after Dad retired, and their costs skyrocketed. Just until we figure something out, Mom would say, sighing dramatically. Years passed, and they never figured it out. The house they live in, the one they always host holidays in? Yeah, I covered a significant chunk of the down payment over a decade ago. It was supposed to be a shared investment, but quickly became their house, and my contribution morphed into covering a large portion of the monthly mortgage payments and property taxes. On top of that, Owen, with his non-existent credit score, needed a car. Guess who co-signed the loan? And guess who ended up making the payments when his latest gig fell through? Me. Always me. I was the responsible one, the one with the stable job, the one who didn't ask for anything. And they treated me like a utility bill, necessary, expected, and rarely appreciated. My life felt like a constant calculation of how much I could afford to give away without completely bankrupting myself. Vacations were postponed, savings grew slower than they should have, all because the family fund needed replenishing, and I was the only donor. It was exhausting, a quiet, internal scream I'd stifled for years. Thanksgiving dinner was the breaking point, though I didn't know it when I pulled up to the house, their house, the one with my money holding up the roof. The air inside was thick with forced cheer. Aunt Caroline was there, Dad's sister, all wide smiles and thinly veiled nosiness. Owen arrived late, of course, looking smug and important. Dinner was the usual strained affair, small talk that skirted around any real issues, Mom making pointed comments about how rarely I visited, ignoring the fact that I lived an hour away and they never drove to see me. Then the big moment. Dad cleared his throat, beaming. Some exciting news, he announced. Eleanor clasped her hands, beaming too. They went on to explain how they were giving Owen $50,000, $50,000, to invest in his new business venture, artisanal dog sweaters. He had a whole pitch about a gap in the luxury pet wear market. Owen nodded along seriously, like this wasn't just another destined-to-fail scheme. $50,000. My breath hitched. That was more than I'd managed to save all year, after covering all their emergencies. Then came my part. After the gushing over Owen, Mom turned to me, a small, awkwardly wrapped package in her hands. And for Riley, she said, we didn't know what to get you. You seem to have everything. She handed me a crumpled envelope. Inside was a $15 gift card to Greasy Spoon Burgers, a fast food place I'd mentioned once years ago that I couldn't stand. Thomas added, Owen just needed things more right now, you understand. My smile felt glued to my face. Every year of sacrifice, every canceled plan, every dollar I sent them, reduced to a $15 insult to my taste buds. It wasn't the money. It was the utter, complete lack of recognition. The blatant statement that Owen, with his endless failures, was a better investment, more worthy of their resources, which, let's be honest, were largely my resources. In that moment, the scream I'd stifled for years finally broke free inside my head. A cold, hard resolve settled over me. I was done. I mumbled an excuse about having an early start for work the next day, ignoring Aunt Caroline's raised eyebrow. I left before dessert, clutching the ridiculous gift card like a symbol of my years of foolishness. Sitting in my car, the engine running, I felt a strange calm. Pain, yes, but also a chilling clarity. They didn't see me. They saw a bottomless well. It was time to dry it up. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. The automatic payments were the first to go. The next morning, the silence from my end was deafening. I didn't announce what I'd done. I just stopped the flow. The automatic transfer that covered their mortgage portion? Cancelled. The premium payment for their health insurance? Cancelled. Owen's car loan payment? Cancelled. Clicking confirm on each felt like cutting a cord. Liberating, terrifying, and final. The first call came that afternoon. Mom. Riley? Did you forget to send the money for the insurance this month? It's due today. Her voice was tight, demanding. I let it go to voicemail. Then a text. The mortgage company called. They said the payment is missing. Is there a problem? Problem? Yeah, my problem was being their personal bank for a decade. The messages escalated rapidly. Confusion turned to annoyance, then panic. Your mother is very worried, Riley. Please call us. The insurance is cancelled. Your mother has doctor's appointments. Owen's car payment bounced. This is unacceptable, Riley. Their panic wasn't about my well-being. It was about the immediate disruption to their comfortable lives. Aunt Caroline called a day later. Oh, Riley, she started, her voice dripping with false concern. Your mother is just beside herself. This is so unlike you. She launched into the pre-approved script. How hard things were for them. How Owen's business needed stability. How I was making my mother sick with worry. Can't you just help them out this one time? Just until they get back on their feet. My voice was calm, almost unnervingly so. Aunt Caroline, I've been helping them out for years. It's not this one time. And I'm not discussing my finances with you. Please tell Mom and Dad to contact the mortgage company and the insurance provider directly. They'll need to figure things out themselves. She sputtered, clearly not expecting the boundary. But, your mother. She relies on you. And I relied on them to see me as more than an ATM, I replied, the edge in my voice sharper now. They didn't. I'm done being relied on like that. Please pass that message along. I hung up before she could respond. It felt good. It felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. I did talk to my sister, Samantha. She lives across the country but saw the signs years ago and managed to create her own distance, though it wasn't without its own pain. I texted her, briefly explaining what happened and what I'd done. Her response was immediate, finally. It's about damn time, Riley. You aren't responsible for keeping them afloat. Period. Her validation, from someone who understood the family dynamic, was a bomb. Stay strong, she added. They'll fight dirty. She was right. As the days turned into a week, the family's messages became more desperate and then more threatening. Owen sent a text. Seriously? Over a stupid gift card? You're gonna regret this. We know things. Dad called, his voice tight with suppressed rage, leaving a voicemail that hinted darkly about my obligations. Mom's messages swung wildly between tearful pleas and cold accusations of being cruel and selfish. I ignored most of it, but their tactics started to feel off. I noticed an alert from my credit monitoring service about a new inquiry I didn't recognize. Then, a strange piece of mail arrived at my apartment, a pre-approved credit card offer addressed to me, but the application looked like it had been started online using slightly outdated information. My gut clenched. This wasn't just badgering. They were actively trying to access my credit. I immediately called Lucas. He's a friend from college, works in cybersecurity, knows his way around digital footprints. I explained the situation, the financial cutoff, the panic, and now the suspicious activity. Lucas listened patiently. Okay, Riley, this sounds serious. Especially the credit inquiries. Let's take a look. Working with Lucas felt like having a shield. He helped me pull my full credit reports, freeze them temporarily, and set up advanced monitoring. He dug into the login attempts on my old bank accounts, ones I rarely used but hadn't closed, and investment portals. He tracked IP addresses. The findings were chilling. There were multiple failed login attempts from the family's home IP address. There were credit applications started online in my name, some of which were denied, but one, a small line of credit with a lesser-known bank, looked like it might have gone through. Lucas found a recent charge on an old credit card I kept for emergencies, one I hadn't used in months. It was a few $100s, charged to a hardware store near my parents' house. Did you buy anything from a hardware store recently? Lucas asked. My blood ran cold. Owen was always doing DIY projects around their place, projects he swore he paid for. No, I said, my voice barely a whisper. I didn't. Riley, Lucas's voice was gentle but firm. This isn't just dependency anymore. This looks like active fraud. They tried to open credit in your name, and it looks like they might have used that old card. Seeing the digital proof was like a physical blow. The insult of the gift card, the endless payments, the manipulation, that was emotional and financial drain. This was a deliberate criminal act. They weren't just taking advantage. They were trying to steal. My pain solidified into a cold, hard anger unlike anything I'd felt before. Around the same time, while sorting through some old boxes in my closet, trying to declutter before the stress completely buried me, I found a folder labeled Household. Inside were old warranties, appliance manuals, and a few stacks of bills from years ago. Tucked among them was a folded piece of paper in Mom's handwriting. It was titled Ways to Reduce Dependency. My hands trembled as I unfolded it. It wasn't about reducing dependency on me. It was a list of things they needed to cover instead of relying on me, written from their perspective. It listed things like grocery money, ask Riley, car repair, see if Riley can help, and then under a section titled Big Expenses, a bullet point, mortgage portion, Riley's part. Further down, a chilling entry, shift more small bills to Riley's name gradually. She won't notice. The ledger. A literal list detailing their plan to exploit me, hidden away like a secret budget. It confirmed everything, their calculated view of me as a financial resource. It wasn't accidental. It wasn't just poor financial management on their part. It was a strategy. Finding that note, combined with the evidence of attempted fraud, was a moment of absolute clarity. They were never going to change. This wasn't a family dynamic I could fix. It was a relationship built on my exploitation, and it had to be severed completely. The mortgage crisis deepened. They were now receiving formal notices of default. The bank was threatening foreclosure if the significant overdue amount wasn't paid immediately. Dad called, no longer pleading, but demanding. Riley, you have to fix this. The bank is talking about taking the house. This is your fault for stopping the payments. My fault. I echoed, the ledger clutched in my hand. It's my fault you stopped paying your share? It's my fault you planned to bleed me dry. Don't you talk to me like that, he roared. We're your parents. You owe us. I owed you respect, I said, my voice steely. You showed me none. You just showed me how to steal from the people you claim to love. I hung up before he could respond. Their lawyer sent another letter, more aggressive this time, repeating the baseless claims and threats. This time, I didn't just ignore it. I took my evidence, the bank statements, Lucas's report on the fraud attempts, copies of the ledger, and the foreclosure notices they'd sent me to a lawyer I found through Harper's recommendation. My lawyer looked through everything, shaking her head. Riley, they don't have a leg to stand on with their claims against you. But the fraud is serious. We need to formally dispute those charges and make sure you're protected. She sent a sharp cease and desist letter to their lawyer, outlining their fraudulent activity and warning them against further contact or baseless legal threats. This felt proactive, smart. I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was building my defense. I also followed through on formally reporting the identity theft attempts and the fraudulent charge to the credit bureaus and the local police department where the charge occurred. It was a cold, clinical process, but necessary. It felt like washing away the dirt they'd tried to stain me with. As Christmas approached, the air grew thick with anticipation. The family expected me to either cave under pressure or avoid the holidays altogether. I decided neither was an option. I would go. Not for reconciliation, not for a fight, but for a final, irrefutable declaration. I organized my evidence meticulously, physical copies of statements, the ledger, the foreclosure notice, a printout of Lucas's findings, screenshots of the worst messages. I put them in a simple envelope. I sent digital copies to Samantha and Lucas for safekeeping. Christmas dinner was the grand stage for the final act. I arrived exactly on time. No fanfare, just me. The house felt heavy, the forced cheer brittle. Everyone was there, Mom, Dad, Owen, Aunt Caroline, a few other relatives who looked like they'd heard whispers. Their faces when they saw me were a mix of shock, annoyance, and apprehension. The dinner itself was unbearable. Strange small talk, Awkward silences punctuated by Owen's resentful glares. Mom kept trying to catch my eye, a look of pleading and accusation mixed together. I ate quietly, observing them, feeling a strange sense of detachment, like watching actors in a play I was about to shut down. After the plates were cleared, before anyone could suggest moving to the living room or starting gifts, I spoke. My voice was clear and steady, cutting through the awkward air. "Before we continue," I said, placing the envelope in the center of the table, "there's something important I need to share with all of you. Consider it a final gift. The truth." Silence fell. All eyes were on the envelope, then on me. Owen squinted, Dad's jaw tightened. Mom looked terrified. "I've brought some receipts," I continued, pulling out the documents one by one. "Receipts for the nearly $500,000 I've spent over the last 10 years paying your mortgage, your insurance, Owen's debts, his car loan, and countless other emergencies." I slid over the stack of statements. Receipts for the fraudulent credit card application and loan attempt in my name just last month, after I stopped paying your bills. I showed the printout of Lucas's findings, pointing to the IP addresses linked to their house. Owen visibly paled. "Receipts for the notice of default on this house," I said, sliding over the foreclosure document. "You blame me for this?" I looked at Mom and Dad. "But you stopped paying your share. This is the consequence of your dependency, not my decision to protect myself." Then the final piece. I held up the handwritten paper. "And finally this. A checklist. Ways to reduce dependency, you called it. A written plan outlining how to shift bills to my name, how much you expected to get from Riley." "This isn't dependency." My voice cracked slightly with the raw emotion finally surfacing. "This is calculated exploitation." Chaos erupted. Eleanor burst into loud, theatrical sobs, covering her face. "How could you? You're destroying us." Thomas slammed his fist on the table. "That's ridiculous. Lies. You're making things up." Owen yelled. "You're blowing this all out of proportion. Over some old bills and a card. Over years of being used, lied to, and stolen from." I retorted, my voice rising but controlled. "You didn't see me as your daughter or sister. You saw me as a resource. An unlimited one. And when that resource set a single boundary, you tried to steal from her." I looked at each of them. "I am done. Financially. Emotionally. I am reporting the fraud. I am no longer responsible for any of your debts. This," I gestured to the pile of documents, "is the cost of blood, paid for with my peace and my future. And I am not paying anymore." I stood up. Thomas made a sudden movement, reaching for the papers, but I stepped back smoothly. "Keep them," I said, my voice cold. "You'll need them for the lawyers. Good luck with everything." I turned and walked out, leaving the sound of their shouting and Mom's wails behind me. I didn't go home after that. I just drove. No destination, just the highway stretching out in front of me. The silence in the car wasn't empty, it was full of the echoes of the explosion I just ignited. It hurt, a deep ache of grieving a family that never truly existed as I'd wanted it to. But beneath the pain was an incredible lightness. The weight was gone. The calls and messages didn't stop immediately after Christmas, but they changed. They became more desperate, then more vicious. Relatives who had been silent before suddenly reached out, some genuinely concerned, others clearly acting as messengers for my parents, relaying guilt trips or trying to gauge if I'd back down. Aunt Caroline called, sounding shaken, not trying to manipulate, but sharing panicked updates about the foreclosure and how Eleanor isn't taking it well. I listened but offered no solutions. I systematically followed through on protecting myself. My lawyer handled the formal cease and desist, shutting down their lawyer's bluff. I disputed every last fraudulent charge, working with the banks and credit bureaus. I changed my phone number. My old phone, the one filled with their toxic messages, sat in a drawer, a tombstone for that part of my life. I worked with Lucas to lock down my digital security. I informed my workplace of the situation as a precaution, though nothing ever came of their threats to involve my job. The biggest step was the move. I didn't just find a new apartment. I moved to a different state. A clean break. I didn't use an alias for my lease, but I set up utilities and other accounts with extra layers of privacy protection, ensuring my address and contact information wouldn't easily end up in public databases or available to people who knew my past. I wasn't hiding. I was building boundaries with concrete and steel. My new life was quiet. There were no frantic 3 a.m. calls, no unexpected demands, no constant underlying financial stress tied to someone else's irresponsibility. Harper visited once, marveling at how much calmer I seemed. Samantha and I talked more, our bond strengthened by shared understanding. They were my chosen family, solid and reliable. There were a few final attempts at contact. A handwritten letter from Mom, full of self-pity and claiming I'd misunderstood everything. A bitter, blaming email from Owen. I read them, felt a brief pang, and then deleted or discarded them. They still didn't get it. The last communication that truly mattered was a formal notice I received months later, confirmation that the house had been sold in a foreclosure auction. A final, undeniable consequence of their actions and my boundary. It wasn't a victory, it was just closure. Hard cold like glass shattering. I didn't respond to any of the final messages. I didn't need to. My actions had spoken louder than any words could. I had said everything I needed to say at that Christmas dinner. Just last week, I bought a new doormat for my apartment. It's simple, charcoal gray with white letters. It says, Riley's home. No entry to the past.